Sarah Martinez sat in the doctor's office, her hands trembling as she held the medical report. The words on the paper blurred through her tears, but their meaning was crystal clear. After months of tests and procedures, the verdict was final. She would never be able to carry a child of her own. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," Dr. Peterson said gently, his voice filled with compassion. "I know this isn't what you wanted to hear." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. At 32, she had always imagined herself as a mother. She and her husband David had been trying for 3 years, and each negative pregnancy test had been like a small death. Now the dream was officially over. The drive home felt endless. Sarah pulled into her driveway in the suburbs of Denver and sat in her car for a long time, watching her neighbors' children play in their yard. Their laughter felt like daggers in her heart. Inside the house, David was waiting with dinner prepared. He took one look at her face and knew immediately. "The results came in," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. David's shoulders sagged. They had prepared for this possibility, but hope had kept them going. Now, reality hit like a sledgehammer. "We could look into adoption," David said after a long silence. Sarah shook her head. "You know how you feel about that? You've made it clear you want biological children." It was true. David had expressed his feelings about adoption multiple times over the years. He wanted to pass on his family name, his genes, his legacy. Sarah understood, but it didn't make the pain any less. The next few months were difficult. Their marriage, already strained by years of fertility treatments and disappointment, began to crumble. They tried counseling, but the fundamental issue remained. David wanted something Sarah could never give him. The divorce was finalized on a cold February morning. Sarah signed the papers with a heavy heart, knowing that she was losing not just her husband, but her entire vision of what her life would be. "I'm sorry it came to this," David said outside the courthouse. "Me too," Sarah replied. And she meant it. With the house sold and the proceeds split, Sarah found herself alone with a fresh start and no idea what to do with it. Her sister Lisa suggested she take some time away from the city. "Remember Dad's friend Tom, who owns that ranch in Colorado?" Lisa said over coffee, "He mentioned they always need help with bookkeeping and general management. Maybe a change of scenery would be good for you." Sarah had visited the ranch a few times as a child. She remembered wide open spaces, clean air, and a sense of peace she had never found in the city. Maybe Lisa was right. Maybe what she needed was to get as far away from her old life as possible. 2 weeks later, Sarah loaded her Honda Civic with everything she owned and drove west toward Millerville, Colorado. The small town had a population of barely 800 people, surrounded by ranches and farmland that stretched to the mountains. Tom Bradley's ranch was exactly as she remembered it, only smaller somehow. The main house was a 2-story farmhouse with a wraparound porch painted white with green shutters. Several outbuildings dotted the property, and horses grazed peacefully in the pastures. Tom greeted her with a warm hug. He was in his 70s now, his hair completely white, but his eyes still sharp and kind. "Sarah, you look just like your father at your age," he said with a smile. "Welcome to the ranch." Tom showed her to the small cabin that would be her home. It was simple but comfortable, with 1 bedroom, a kitchenette, and a living room with a stone fireplace. Most importantly, it was quiet. "Your job will be managing the books, handling correspondence, and helping coordinate the daily operations," Tom explained as they walked toward the main barn. "It's not glamorous work, but it's important." "I'm grateful for the opportunity," Sarah said, and she meant it. As they approached the barn, Sarah heard the sound of children's laughter. 2 young voices, a boy and a girl, were giggling about something inside. "That would be Jake's kids," Tom said with a smile. "Jake Morrison is my head ranch hand. Been working here for about 3 years now. His boy Tommy is 8 and his little girl Emma is 6. They entered the barn to find a tall man in his mid-30s working on repairing a saddle. His dark hair was slightly messy, and his hands were rough from years of physical work. 2 children sat nearby on hay bales, watching him work with fascination. "Jake, I'd like you to meet Sarah Martinez," Tom said. "She's going to be helping us with the administrative side of things." Jake looked up and smiled. His eyes were a warm brown and his smile was genuine. "Nice to meet you, Sarah. Welcome to the ranch." The little girl, Emma, had long blonde hair and pigtails and wore a pink dress that had seen better days. She studied Sarah with curious blue eyes. "Are you going to live here now?" Emma asked innocently. "For a while, yes," Sarah replied, kneeling down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" "I'm Emma, and this is my brother Tommy," she said, pointing to the boy beside her. Tommy had his father's dark hair and serious expression, but he gave Sarah a shy wave. "It's very nice to meet you both," Sarah said. Over the next few days, Sarah settled into her new routine. She worked in the ranch office each morning, handling paperwork, paying bills, and coordinating supply deliveries. The work was straightforward, and she found comfort in the routine. In the afternoons, she often saw Jake and his children around the ranch. Jake was clearly devoted to his kids, but Sarah could see the strain on his face. Managing 2 young children while working full-time was clearly a challenge. One afternoon, while Sarah was walking back to her cabin, she heard crying coming from behind the barn. She followed the sound and found Emma sitting alone, tears streaming down her face. "Emma, what's wrong?" Sarah asked, sitting down beside the little girl. "I fell down and hurt my knee," Emma sniffled, showing Sarah a small scrape. "Oh my, that does look like it hurts," Sarah said sympathetically. "Where's your daddy?" "He's fixing the fence with Tommy. I was supposed to stay by the house, but I wanted to see the baby horses." Sarah looked around and didn't see Jake anywhere nearby. Emma had clearly wandered off on her own and gotten hurt. "Let's get you cleaned up," Sarah said, gently taking Emma's hand. "I have some Band-Aids in my cabin." Emma's eyes widened. "You have Band-Aids with pictures on them?" "I might," Sarah said with a smile. In her cabin, Sarah carefully cleaned Emma's scrape and applied a colorful Band-Aid with cartoon characters on it. Emma's delighted. "My mommy used to have Band-Aids like this," Emma said quietly. Sarah's heart clenched. She realized she had never heard mention of the children's mother. "Tell me about your mommy," Sarah said gently. Emma's face grew sad. "She went to heaven when I was little. Daddy says she's watching over us, but I miss her." "I'm sure you do," Sarah said, fighting back tears of her own. "What was she like?" "She was pretty and she smelled like flowers. She used to read me stories before bed and make funny voices for all the characters." Just then, they heard Jake calling Emma's name with obvious panic in his voice. "We're in here," Sarah called back. Jake appeared in the doorway, his face flushed with worry and relief. "Emma, what happened?" "I told you to stay by the house." "I'm sorry, Daddy. I wanted to see the baby horses and I fell down." "But Miss Sarah fixed me up," Emma said, proudly showing off her Band-Aid. Jake's expression softened as he looked at Sarah. "Thank you. I was working on the fence, and when I turned around, she was gone." "I've been looking everywhere." "It's no problem," Sarah said. "She just had a little scrape." Jake knelt down to examine Emma's knee. "What do we say when someone helps us?" "Thank you, Miss Sarah," Emma said politely. "You're very welcome," Sarah replied, after Jake and Emma left. Sarah sat in her cabin thinking about the little girl's words about her mother. She found herself wondering what had happened to Jake's wife and how long he had been raising the children alone. The next morning, Tom stopped by the office where Sarah was working. "I heard you helped Emma yesterday," he said. Jake was very grateful. "It was nothing. She's a sweet little girl." Tom nodded. "Those kids have been through a lot. Their mother, Rebecca, died in a car accident about 2 years ago. Drunk driver hit her on her way home from work. Jake's been doing his best, but it's been tough on all of them." Sarah felt her heart break for the family. "That's terrible. Those poor children. Jake's a good man and a great father, but he's struggling to balance everything. The kids need more attention than he can give them while working full-time. We've talked about getting some help, but good childcare is hard to find out here, and expensive too." That evening, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about Jake and his children. She understood loss, though hers was different. She had lost the dream of motherhood, while Jake had lost his partner in raising the children he already had. The next afternoon, she encountered the family again. Jake was trying to help Tommy with homework while Emma played nearby. Tommy was getting frustrated with his math problems, and Emma kept interrupting with questions. Jake looked exhausted. Need some help? Sarah found herself asking. Jake looked up, surprised. Oh, hi Sarah. I don't want to bother you. I know you're busy. I'm not busy right now, Sarah said, sitting down at the picnic table where they were working. I used to be pretty good at third-grade math. Tommy looked at her hopefully. I don't understand these word problems. Let me see, Sarah said, looking at the worksheet. She quickly realized Tommy was a bright boy who just needed someone to explain things differently. 3 months had passed since Sarah's arrival at the ranch, and her life had taken on a rhythm she never expected to find. Every morning, she woke to the sound of Tommy and Emma's voices as they walked past her cabin on their way to catch the school bus. Every evening, they stopped by for homework help that had evolved into something much more meaningful. Sarah had never imagined how naturally she would slip into the role of caregiver. She found herself checking weather forecasts to make sure the children dressed appropriately, keeping a mental inventory of their favorite snacks, and learning the subtle signs that indicated when Tommy was frustrated or when Emma was getting tired. One Tuesday morning, Emma appeared at Sarah's door before school, tears streaming down her face. What's wrong, sweetheart? Sarah asked, immediately kneeling down to Emma's level. I can't find my special bracelet, Emma sobbed. The one with the heart charm that Daddy gave me. It was Mommy's, and now it's gone. Sarah's heart went out to the little girl. She knew how much that bracelet meant to Emma, who wore it every day as a connection to the mother she barely remembered. Let's look for it together, Sarah said calmly. When did you last see it? I had it yesterday when we were playing by the creek, Emma sniffled. Okay, we'll check there after school. Don't worry, we'll find it. That afternoon, Sarah, Emma, and Tommy spent 2 hours searching the area around the creek. They looked under rocks in the tall grass and along the water's edge. Just when Emma was about to give up hope, Tommy spotted something glinting in the mud near the bank. There it is, he shouted excitedly. Sarah carefully extracted the bracelet from the mud and gently cleaned it off. The heart charm was tarnished but unbroken. Emma's face lit up with pure joy as Sarah fastened it back around her wrist. Thank you, Miss Sarah, Emma said, throwing her arms around Sarah's neck. You're the best finder in the world. Later that evening, Jake sought out Sarah after putting the children to bed. Emma told me about the bracelet, he said. I can't tell you what that means to her. To me too. I know how important it is, Sarah said. I could see it in her eyes. Jake was quiet for a moment, studying Sarah's face in the soft porch light. You're really good with them. They've grown so attached to you. I've grown attached to them too, Sarah admitted. Can I ask you something? Jake said, his voice hesitant. Of course. What made you want to help us? I mean, you could have kept to yourself, focused on your work. Most people would have. Sarah considered the question carefully. She had never told Jake about her fertility struggles, about the dreams she had lost. But something in his earnest expression made her want to be honest. I always wanted children, she said quietly. My ex-husband and I tried for years to have a baby. When we found out I couldn't have children, it ended our marriage. I came here feeling like a failure, like my life had no purpose. Your children. They've shown me that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choosing to love and be loved. Jake was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. I'm sorry about your marriage. That must have been devastating. It was. But being here with Tommy and Emma has helped me heal in ways I didn't expect. They need you, Jake said simply. More than you know. The next few weeks brought new challenges and deeper connections. Sarah began taking on more responsibilities with the children, driving them to school when Jake had early ranch duties, helping with school projects, and attending Tommy's baseball games and Emma's dance recitals. At Tommy's first baseball game of the season, Sarah sat in the stands with Jake, cheering loudly every time Tommy came to bat. The boy was clearly nervous, and after striking out in his first 2 at-bats, he looked toward the stands with disappointment. He's putting too much pressure on himself, Jake said worriedly. During Tommy's third at-bat, Sarah stood up and called out, "You've got this, Tommy. Just have fun." Something in her voice seemed to reach him. Tommy relaxed his shoulders, took a deep breath, and on the next pitch, connected solidly with the ball. It wasn't a home run, but it was a solid hit that got him to first base safely. The joy on Tommy's face as he stood on first base was worth everything to Sarah after the game. He ran straight to her. "Did you see my hit?" he asked excitedly. "I did." "I'm so proud of you for not giving up," Sarah said, pulling him into a hug. Later, as they walked back to the truck, Jake put his hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Thank you for believing in him," he said. "He's been struggling with confidence lately." "He just needed to remember that baseball is supposed to be fun," Sarah said. "He's a good player. He just needs to trust himself." Emma's dance recital the following week was an entirely different experience. The 6-year-old was performing in her first formal recital, and she was both excited and terrified. "What if I forget the steps?" Emma asked Sarah while getting ready backstage. "Then you make up new ones and keep dancing," Sarah said with a smile. "The most important thing is to have fun and remember that everyone watching loves you no matter what." Emma's performance was adorable, and while she did miss a few steps, she kept smiling and dancing with such enthusiasm that the audience couldn't help but be charmed. Sarah found herself wiping away tears of pride as she watched the little girl take her bow. "She did amazing," Jake said, his voice emotional. "Rebecca would have been so proud." It was the first time Jake had mentioned his late wife to Sarah, and she felt honored by the confidence. After the recital, Emma bounced over to them still in her pink tutu. "Did you like my dancing?" she asked Sarah. "You were absolutely beautiful," Sarah said, kneeling down to hug her. "You're a wonderful dancer. Will you help me practice for the next recital?" Emma asked hopefully. "Of course I will," Sarah promised. As spring turned to early summer, Sarah's role in the children's lives continued to expand naturally. She found herself helping with more than just homework and activities. When Tommy had a nightmare one night while Jake was helping with a difficult calving, Sarah was the one who comforted him. When Emma came down with a stomach bug, Sarah was there with cool washcloths and gentle reassurance the other ranch families had accepted Sarah as part of Jake's extended family. But not everyone in town was as welcoming. Sarah first encountered resistance at the grocery store in Millerville. "You're the woman living out at the Bradley Ranch," said Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman who seemed to know everyone's business. "Yes, I work there," Sarah replied politely. "And you're spending a lot of time with Jake Morrison's children." "I hear," Mrs. Henderson continued, her tone disapproving. "I help with their homework and activities," Sarah said, not sure where this was going. "Those children lost their mother barely 2 years ago," Mrs. Henderson said sharply. "They don't need some city woman confusing them about what a real family looks like." The words stung more than Sarah cared to admit. After Mrs. Henderson walked away, Sarah stood in the grocery aisle fighting back tears. She had been so focused on how good it felt to be needed that she hadn't considered whether her presence might be confusing or harmful to the children. That evening, Sarah was unusually quiet during homework time. Tommy noticed first. "Are you okay, Miss Sarah?" he asked. "You seem sad." "I'm fine, sweetie. Just tired," she said, forcing a smile, but Emma wasn't fooled. After Tommy went to play, she climbed onto Sarah's lap. "Someone said something mean to you today," Emma said, matter-of-factly. Sarah was amazed by the little girl's perceptiveness. "What makes you think that?" "You get a certain look when people are mean." "Tommy gets it too sometimes at school." Sarah sighed. "Someone just thought maybe I spend too much time with you and Tommy. They think you might get confused about families and mothers." Emma was quiet for a long time, thinking seriously. Finally, she said, "Do you remember what I told you about my mommy? You said she was pretty and smelled like flowers and read you stories." "And she loved us very much," Emma added. "But she's in heaven now, and she can't read us stories anymore, or fix our scrapes, or help with homework." "But you can." "And you do. That doesn't make you my mommy, but it makes you special to us." The wisdom in the 6-year-old's words brought tears to Sarah's eyes. You're a very smart little girl, Emma. I know, Emma said with typical 6-year-old confidence. And I know you love us, even if some people think that's weird. That weekend, Sarah's concerns came to a head when the children's paternal grandmother, Margaret Morrison, made an unexpected visit to the ranch. Sarah had heard Jake mention his late wife's mother-in-law occasionally, but she lived several states away and rarely visited. Margaret was a stern woman in her 70s, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. She hugged the children warmly but studied Sarah with obvious suspicion when Jake introduced them. "So you're the woman who's been helping with my grandchildren?" Margaret said, her tone neutral but her eyes cold. "Yes. I help with homework and activities," Sarah said, trying to sound professional. "How convenient for you," Margaret replied. And Sarah caught the underlying implication that evening. After the children were in bed, Sarah could hear raised voices coming from the main house. She tried not to listen, but the argument was clearly about her. The next morning, Jake appeared at her cabin door looking exhausted and angry. "I need to talk to you," he said. Sarah's stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" The custody papers arrived on a Thursday morning, delivered by a serious-looking man in a suit who looked completely out of place on the ranch. Sarah watched from her office window as Jake signed for the documents, his face growing pale as he read them. Margaret Morrison was indeed petitioning for custody of Tommy and Emma, claiming that Jake was providing an unstable and inappropriate environment for the children. The papers specifically mentioned Sarah's presence as evidence of Jake's poor judgment and inability to prioritize his children's needs. She's claiming on emotionally manipulating the children by bringing another woman into their lives so soon after their mother's death, Jake told Sarah later, his voice tight with anger and worry. "She says I'm confusing them about family structure and potentially causing psychological damage." Sarah felt sick reading the legal documents. Margaret's lawyers had painted her as an opportunistic woman taking advantage of a grieving family. They questioned her background, her motives, and her qualifications to be around children. Worst of all, they had included statements from several townspeople, including Mrs. Henderson, suggesting that Sarah's relationship with the family was inappropriate and potentially harmful to the children's development. "We need a lawyer," Jake said, running his hands through his hair. "A good one. This is more serious than I thought." Tom Bradley recommended a family attorney in Denver named Patricia Vasquez, who specialized in custody cases. When they met with her the following week, she was direct about their situation. "This is going to be challenging," Patricia said after reviewing the papers. "Mrs. Morrison has significant financial resources, and she's presenting herself as a stable, traditional grandmother who can provide the children with better opportunities. The court will consider what's in the children's best interests. And unfortunately, some judges still view single fathers with skepticism, especially when there's a new romantic relationship involved." "But I'm their father," Jake said, his voice strained. "I've been raising them alone for 2 years. They're happy and healthy and doing well in school. I understand that and will absolutely use those facts in our defense. But we need to build a strong case that shows not just that you're a good father, but that your current living situation is beneficial to the children, not harmful." Patricia explained that they would need character witnesses, documentation of the children's well-being, and evidence that Sarah's presence was positive for the family. "The children will likely have to speak with a court-appointed child psychologist," Patricia warned. "Mrs. Morrison's team will try to show that they're confused or conflicted about family roles." Driving back to the ranch that evening, Sarah and Jake were both quiet, lost in their own thoughts. "Maybe Margaret is right," Sarah said finally. "Maybe I'm confusing them. Maybe my being here is selfish." Jake pulled the truck over to the side of the road and turned to face her. "Do you really believe that?" Sarah thought about the past 6 months. She remembered Emma's joy when she found the lost bracelet, Tommy's proud smile at his baseball game, the countless evenings of homework and bedtime stories and scraped knees that needed Band-Aids. "No," she said quietly. "But what if the judge believes it? Then we'll deal with that when it happens." But I won't live my life or make decisions based on fear anymore. Those children love you, Sarah, and you love them. That's not confusing or harmful. That's beautiful. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Patricia gathered school records showing the children's academic improvement since Sarah had been helping with homework. Tommy's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, wrote a letter praising the positive changes she had seen in his confidence and attitude. Emma's dance instructor noted how much more enthusiastic and focused the little girl had become. Dr. Sarah Sean, the children's pediatrician, reviewed their medical records and provided a statement confirming their excellent physical health and emotional development. These children show no signs of distress or confusion, she wrote. On the contrary, they appear happy, secure, and well cared for. But the most powerful support came from an unexpected source, the community that had initially seemed skeptical of Sarah's presence. It started with Maria Santos, the mother of Tommy's best friend. She approached Sarah at the grocery store, the same place where Mrs. Henderson had confronted her months earlier. "I heard about the custody case," Maria said quietly. "I want you to know that my son Carlos talks about Tommy all the time. He says Tommy is happier now than he's been since his mother died. Carlos asks why Tommy's family can't come to dinner more often." Word spread through the small community, and Sarah was amazed by the support that emerged. Ranch families, school parents, and even some longtime townspeople came forward to speak on behalf of Jake's parenting and Sarah's positive influence on the children. Betty Williams, who ran the local diner, stopped by the ranch with a petition signed by over 100 community members supporting Jake's custody. "That city grandmother doesn't know these children like we do," Betty said firmly. "We've watched them grow and heal, and anyone with eyes can see they're thriving." The court-appointed child psychologist, Dr. Michael Foster, spent several hours with Tommy and Emma individually and together. Sarah and Jake waited anxiously for his report, knowing it could be crucial to their case. When Dr. Foster's evaluation arrived, Sarah held her breath as Patricia read it aloud. Tommy Morrison presents as a well-adjusted 8-year-old with appropriate emotional development for his age. He demonstrates a healthy understanding of his family structure, including his deceased mother's role and his current caregivers. When asked about Miss Martinez, Tommy stated, "She's not my mom, but she takes care of us like family does. She helps me with math and comes to my baseball games. She makes my dad less sad." Patricia continued reading. Emma Morrison shows excellent emotional resilience and social development. Her understanding of family dynamics is age-appropriate and healthy. Regarding Miss Martinez, Emma said, "My mommy is in heaven and watches over us. Miss Sarah is here with us now and helps take care of us. That's different but good. Daddy is happier and we have more help with things." Dr. Foster concluded that both children showed no signs of confusion about family roles and appeared to benefit significantly from the stability and additional support Sarah provided. "This is good," Patricia said with a smile. "Very good. Dr. Foster is recommending that custody remain with Jake. And he's specifically noting that the children's current living situation appears to be in their best interests." The day before the custody hearing, Sarah sat with Tommy and Emma on the porch swing, reading bedtime stories as had become their tradition. Emma snuggled close, her small hand holding tightly to Sarah's finger. "Miss Sarah," Emma said quietly, "will you still be here tomorrow night for stories?" "Yes, sweetheart." "I'll be here," Sarah promised, though her heart was racing with anxiety about the hearing. Tommy looked up from his book. "What if Grandma Margaret makes us go live with her?" Sarah felt Jake's presence behind them before she saw him step onto the porch. He had heard Tommy's question. "That's not going to happen," Jake said firmly, sitting down next to them. "You belong here with me on this ranch." "This is your home, with Miss Sarah too?" Emma asked hopefully. Jake looked at Sarah as she saw something in his eyes that made her heart skip. "Yes, with Miss Sarah too. If she wants to stay, forever?" Emma pressed. "Forever," Sarah said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. The custody hearing was held in the family court in Denver. Margaret arrived with two expensive-looking lawyers and an air of confidence that made Sarah's stomach churn. She wore a perfectly tailored suit and pearls, looking every inch the successful grandmother who could provide material advantages for the children. Margaret's lawyers painted Jake as a well-meaning but overwhelmed single father who was making poor decisions out of loneliness. They argued that the children would benefit from the structure, educational opportunities, and emotional stability that Margaret could provide in her suburban home. Mr. Morrison works long hours doing physical labor, one lawyer argued. The children are essentially being raised by a woman with no training in child development, no legal relationship to the family, and questionable motives for inserting herself into their lives. When it was Patricia's turn, she methodically presented evidence of Jake's excellent parenting, the children's well-being, and the community support for the family's current situation. Your Honor, Patricia said in her closing argument, this case isn't about who can provide the most expensive tutoring or the largest house. It's about what's in these children's best interests. Tommy and Emma Morrison have a loving father who has successfully cared for them through the most difficult period of their young lives. They have a stable home, a supportive community, and additional love and care from Miss Martinez. Dr. Foster's evaluation clearly shows that these children are thriving in their current environment. The most powerful moment came when the judge asked to speak with Tommy and Emma privately. Sarah and Jake waited in the hallway, holding hands and praying that the children would be able to express their feelings clearly. When the family reconvened, the judge addressed the courtroom with careful consideration. I have reviewed all the evidence, spoken with the children, and considered